Joining us now from Capitol Hill is Democratic Senator from North Dakota, Heitkamp. Senator, thank you so much for joining us, especially on a day where you must be tired, given all that has transpired on Capitol Hill. I want to ask you first, how are these negotiations different than other negotiations? And as a woman, I ask you, did the presence of strong women change the dynamics of this conversation?
Well, that's been a lot of the talk here, but I think the bottom line is what should be talked about is that moderates really came together and said, we cannot tolerate continuing to cost this economy $24 billion. We can't tolerate $160 million every day getting spent. We have got to resolve this impasse because we've got bigger issues ahead of us, like resolving the budget, not just picking out timelines, but actually resolving this budget going forward, as the president said.
Senator, and I agree with you, the moderates came out, but in some part, I think folks would argue that the reason the moderates were able to come out is that Democrats were such a wall. I mean, so united in the fight against negotiating over the debt ceiling and the government shutdown. Do you think that's going to be the new move in the Democratic playbook?
Well, I think when you look at it, and I get asked this question a lot because I think that people thought I was one of those that would want to kind of side with the idea that we're going to use this process to delay or really obstruct the health care law. And, you know, the reality is that when I ran, there was probably $10 million worth of advertising saying she'll support the health care law. And what I said is there's good and bad, but I'm never going to vote to repeal. So I don't know where they got the idea that we would take this as a strategy that was at all right with public policy. And so for me, it really was, you know, I'd love a farm bill, but I didn't stomp my feet and say, you better give me a farm bill or I'm not going to vote to open up the government. It was just amazing to me as a new member that one or two people could actually cause the American economy $24 billion.
Let me ask you a question about the Affordable Care Act, because I think a lot of folks said the Democrats in the White House lucked out that they had the smokescreen of this Republican chaos to turn the national attention away from what has been, in some folks' minds, a disastrous rollout. And I wonder now that this sort of crisis is over, how concerned are Democrats about the rollout, the ACA, the next 6 weeks, the next 6 months?
Well, I haven't waited for the crisis to be over to be concerned about it. I'm concerned whether people in my state elected not to do their own exchange. So we're on the national exchange. So this has got to work for people who desperately need health insurance, and we're going to be asking some serious questions. But you know, we also need to understand, any of us who've run, you know, big agencies, who have done conversions and done computer processes like the one we're talking about, understand that there's going to be some initial problems. I think that I'm more concerned on the back end that the products be affordable and that people actually be able to, you know, for the first time in their lives, for a lot of them, get health insurance.
Senator, I'm going to open this up to our folks in New York really quickly. And Karen, the subject of the ACA, the president alluded to in his remarks today. It will be interesting to see how much they own this problem, because as of right now, I mean, I do think they haven't had to talk too much about the rollout, other than referring to the glitches. But now that this is going to be the focus of the country, some folks are saying, and Robert Gibbs was on the show, that someone needs to get fired, that they need to sort of say, this was a disaster, we are owning it and we are fixing it.
Absolutely. I think they definitely need to come forward with this is our plan. And I agree with Robert. Somebody gets fired, here's the new plan, here's what we're doing, here's how we're moving forward, here's our metrics for success. Because clearly there has been this sort of smokescreen, and sort of, you know, day by day you read the little stories about, oh, only this many people were able to sign up. It's more than glitches. It's clearly, though, people want health care, right? I mean, the sheer number of people who have gone to the site tells you this is the right idea. But, you know, it's like, what was it they said on Saturday Night Live? It's like, you know, 1-800-Flowers not being ready for Valentine's Day. It's like,
yes.
You know, they probably have about a week to get their act together before this becomes what we're talking about.
Senator, I also want to ask you about the Farm Bill. You mentioned it before. The president picked that as his third priority. I think a lot of newsrooms were scratching their heads that he put it on that level, which is not to say that the legislation is not critical and very, very, very important to this country, but it has certainly not been discussed a lot in the national dialogue. Are you confident that we can get something done here? The House bill cuts $39 billion to food stamps over the next 10 years. The cuts in the House bill are nearly 10 times the amount proposed by the Senate. Is there some ground for compromise here?
Well, I think what you have is you have a Senate bill that proposes $24 billion of real reform. That's a pretty attractive thing for a budget committee to take a look at. I think the other reason why the president listed it is we've got a farm bill that has expired. September 30th, along with the government being shut down, the farm bill expired. We have people planning for their crop year. The American agriculture is 16 million jobs. It's been the bright spot on the economy. Why would we risk that by not doing the right thing and getting a farm bill that gives certainty to our producers and certainly creates certainty in our food security?
Well, we will certainly have our eyes trained on the Senate and the lower chamber to see what happens in the coming weeks. North Dakota Senator Heidi Heitkamp, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.